and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got some fun gingerbread DIYs to share with you that I think you're really going to enjoy. So if you want to know how to make them, stick around. I'll show you how. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Right, Maxwell? Okay, for this first one, I'm using some of the paint trays from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wipe them down with some rubbing alcohol. And then I'm going to take them outside and I'm going to spray paint them with a dull aluminum spray paint. Next, I'm going to take some black chalk paint and a toothbrush, and I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe some of the paint off the toothbrush. And then I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to run it through it just to give little sprinkles of black all over this. And I'm going to do this kind of heavy. And if you want to wear gloves while you do this, because it did take a little while to get my hands clean afterwards. Next, I'm taking an 1/8 inch hole punch, and I'm just going to punch a hole right into the center of here. Now, I would highly recommend doing this before you paint it. Next, I'm taking some red and white baker's twine, and I'm pulling a long piece off of this. I'm not sure how long it was, but you're going to need enough to hang some beads onto it. So just cut both of them exactly the same length, and just fold it in half, and then run it through that hole in the back, and then loop that through. And I'm going to use an upholstery needle to thread some beads on here. I got some red beads and some white beads. I'm doing 2 large red ones and 1 white one. And then just pull it up there, tie it off so you still have enough room to hang it onto something. And do the same thing with the second one. And then I got these little peppermints from Amazon. I'll give you the link for those. And I'm putting a pretty good sized dollop of glue on the back. And I'm going to put one in each one of the openings. And you do want plenty of glue because it is kind of rounded on the bottom part. So it's really going to kind of grab onto the edges, and you need to put more in the center. And these are a hard plastic. These are really great for crafting. I'll definitely give you a link for these. And honestly, these look good just like they are here. I mean, so if you want to do something super simple, just put the little candies in it and then hang these up. So I'm going to make a small wreath. I'm using the boxwood garland I get from Amazon. I'll give you the link for it. I'm wrapping it around about 3 times and then cut the tail a little bit longer so you can kind of run it through to hold it all together. And then I'm just going to glue them right to the center. And I know you're probably saying, why did I put the peppermint in the center ones? But if you look from the side, you can still see them. So I would definitely still put those into the center. Next, I got these little gingerbread men. They come in a little pack. I got them on Amazon. I'll give you a link for them. And I'm just cutting off the little ornament tip at the top. It's just a little loop. I'm just cutting it off right flush with the ornament. And then I'm just going to glue these on each one of these, just diagonal across those wreaths. And all the little gingerbread guys in this kit, they're all bakery themed. Going to finish them out. I'm just going to take a red and white gingham ribbon, and I'm just going to tie a little bow to put at the bottom of each one of these. Okay, that was pretty much it. These were pretty super simple. Look how cute they turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, next I'm taking some red and white pillow ticking, and then I'm using a little cutting board that I got on Amazon. I'll give you the link for those. And I'm just going to trace around it onto the back of my fabric. And I would recommend definitely using a pencil over a pen because you will see it if you don't. I decided just to cut the top part out with a pair of scissors because it was a little bit easier. And then I'm going to glue the whole thing to my board and finish cutting out the sides. After you get it cut out, we're going to add a generous amount of Mod Podge to the top section. And then we're just going to line our fabric up on this and make sure it's even, and then we'll finish out Mod Podging the rest of it. It was easier to cut it out like that. I tried one where you tried to cut it out after you got it onto the cutting board, and it just took too much fabric off of it. And then I'm just going to Mod Podge the rest of it and then just lay this down and let that dry. Just really smooth it out good. Once that's dry, just go ahead and take your scissors and just cut right up to the edge of the cutting board to finish cutting this out. And it was pretty easy to cut it out once you got it to this point. It was just you couldn't get around the neck of the cutting board with the scissors, so you will want to do it this way. Okay, next I'm taking a little sander. I'm just going to sand the edges of it to get the fabric completely frayed at the edge. And I'll give you the link for this little sander. I got these on Amazon. You get a pack of these with a bunch of different grit sandpaper. They're super handy because they're easy to hold. We just try to get all the rest of that fabric off the edges. Next, I'm going to take some of the Tim Holtz Distressing Ink in a walnut color, and I'm just going to distress the edges. And then I am going to run it through the center too to give it a little bit more of a worn look or a rustic look. I'm just doing the sides a little bit darker, and then I'll just run through the center once I get done doing this. Take an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to poke the hole right through the center, and then just stick a pencil through there just to kind of finish it out. Okay, next I've given you a pattern for a little gingerbread man in the description below. Just download it and cut it out, and then we're going to cut it out of felt. And I'm just using a heather tan color felt. And you're cutting this with two of them together, so you're cutting two layers exactly the same. And we're going to glue this in sections, so pull the head back right there. Just go right around the top part of the head, all the way around, and we're going to glue that one in first because we are going to stuff these, and it'll make it a little bit easier to do it this way. Just get the head glued in good, and then we're going to add some stuffing to that. And I'm just using polyfill to stuff this, but you can get this stuff pretty full. Just make sure that you do let your glue dry before you start putting it in there. Then once you get the head done, we're going to go ahead and start doing the arms. We're going to do both arms. And you do want to go down the leg just about 1/4 of an inch when you're doing this. And then we're going to take a pencil eraser to help us get the stuffing up into the arms. So just take little pieces of it, and we're going to get this pretty full, but if you just take a pencil eraser, it'll help you get it up into there. Just make sure that you are adding enough glue so it doesn't come apart. Okay, after you get the arms done, we're going to fill up the chest cavity, and then we're going to start doing the legs. And then to do the legs, we're going to go almost all the way around the leg, leaving the center section open. Just go up a little bit there. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we're going to fill it through the center. So you're going to leave the center section open right there. And then we're going to stuff it right through the center of the two legs. And I'm starting with a pair of tweezers to kind of help get it up in there a little bit easier. And then we'll start pushing it over into the legs. Just kind of fill up one of the legs, and then we can do the other leg as well. And that pencil eraser end really does help get it into the grooves, and I am adding quite a bit of polyfill in here. And then once you get it completely full, we're just going to glue up the bottom part of it. Just kind of open that up a little bit, and then just add a little bit of glue right there at the end. Okay, next to distress it, I'm going to use that same Tim Holtz Distressing Ink, and I'm going to go all the way around the edges of this. This just gives it a little bit more of a vintage look. If you're not into the vintage look, then just leave this part out. Next, for some eyes, I got these little doll eyes from Amazon. I'll give you the link for those. And then I'm just cutting the little tabs off the bottom of them. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue to attach these to my little gingerbread man. I'm only putting eyes on him. I am not putting a mouth. You can if you want to, but I'm just putting eyes. Okay, next I got this brown and white checked ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to tie a bow right around his neck. And then I'm just going to cut my sides off at a diagonal. Next, I'm just going to cut a little rectangle out of some linen fabric, and I am using the frayed end on this. And I'm just going to fold the top part over. I'm going to use that part at the top. Just going to take some hot glue and glue that down. And then I'm going to pull the other sides in as well, and the bottom, just to have a finished look. We're just making a pocket for the front part of this. And you can use any kind of fabric that you want to. I just happen to have this linen, so that's what I used. And then just glue up the bottom as well. Just kind of tuck your corners in a little bit so they don't overhang in the front. We're going to take some of that same Tim Holtz ink, and we're going to distress the sides of our pocket also. Next, to assemble it, you're just going to put your little pocket right on here, kind of come up from the bottom a little bit so you can still see the pillow ticking towards the bottom. And you're just gluing in the 3 sides. Okay, next I'm just going to add a little pine branch to this. I got these on Amazon. I'll give you the link for them. Just push it all the way down in there. And then we're going to take our little gingerbread man, and we're just going to glue him right to the front. Dress up the top, I'm just going to take a red and white ribbon. I'll give you the link for this. I got this on Amazon also. And I'm just going to tie this into a bow. And you get quite a bit of ribbon on this roll. I'll give the link to it below. And then I'm just going to cut my ends off at a diagonal. Next, I'm going to take some puff paint and a paintbrush, and I'm going to lightly brush my pine branch just to give it a little bit of a snow effect. And puff paint works great for this. I'm going to take some black puff paint, and I'm just going to put 3 little buttons right down the front of him. Just little dots. Then to hang this, I'm just going to use some jute twine. I'm just going to run it right through the center of that hole, and then I'm just going to tie this off into a knot. And to finish it off, I'm just going to add a few little berries. This was a pretty simple one. All right, look how cute that turned out. Let me know which one's your favorite today. This one I'm using one of the tower style graters, and I'm just going to spray this with some Rust-Oleum Satin Espresso paint. I'm just doing a light coat all the way around first, and I'm going to let it dry, and I'm going to come back and put my second coat onto it because you don't want it to run, and it will if you sit there and just spray too much. After that's dried, I'm going to take some burnt sienna acrylic paint and a sponge brush, and I'm just going to start dabbing this onto this. Now, I'm doing it pretty heavily, and you want to get your sponge wet first and then kind of dry it out good. And then just start going around, dabbing it around, and we're trying to make it look rusty. And this worked really good. This color is a great color with brown against brown to get the rust effect. And I'm going to put it all over it on all sides. And I'm just going to kind of turn my wrist as I'm doing it. Just kind of patting it on and turning your wrist so you have different designs all the way around. And I'm going to do this very heavily. And I'm going to do a little bit extra on the sides and in the corners and on the bottom edge. But just spend some time on this part because this is going to be your major focal part. So you do want to get quite a bit of this color on here. Okay, then I let that dry for a little bit, and I'm coming back in and putting a little bit more on here. Okay, after that's dried, I'm coming in with some black paint, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, I'm not going to put it exactly everywhere, but I am going to put a pretty generous amount, and I am going to try to dab most of the paint off of my sponge onto a paper towel before I do this. This little step here is going to really soften up your rust look and finish it up. But you definitely want to add the black on here because it really does make it the final look for it. And I'll zoom in on it here in a minute to kind of show you exactly how it looks. This is a close-up view of how this looks, but it really did age it good, and it does look like rust. Next, I'm going to take some different textures and some different colors of some Christmas greenery, and I'm just going to kind of combine them all together. This is what's going to go into the very top of our little grater. And I'm going to kind of divide it up, and I'm going to put part of it in the back of the handle right there, and then part of it in the front of the handle. And that way it'll all stay sandwiched in there real good, and you can still see the handle, and it just gives it a nice finished look there. Make it a little bit fuller. I'm just coming back in with a little bit more and just kind of filling in where it needs to be. And some of this greenery I got from Amazon. I'll give you the link for the ones that I did get from Amazon. And then the one that has the flock look on it, that was actually a wreath that I got at Hobby Lobby that I just took apart. Next, I've given you this pattern in the description below. Just download it and print it and cut it out. And then I'm going to show you this little square right here. That's a 1-inch gauge. So once you print your pattern, you need to make sure that that measures 1 inch. And I'm just using some felt to cut this out. I'm doing 2 layers so that you have a front and a back. And just pin your pattern and cut it out. Now this is called heathered brown, and you can get this from Etsy and places like that. I think I did get mine in bulk from Etsy one year, but they do make it in smaller pieces too. And this is just going to be like a little primitive looking gingerbread man. So you don't have to be perfect on cutting it out. If you don't get it exactly right up to the line, don't worry about it because it is supposed to be a little bit more primitive looking. Okay, next we're going to stuff it, and we're going to start right at the top part of the head. So go all the way around the head first, let that dry, and then we're going to stuff the head first. Kind of similar like we just did the little small one, but we're going to do this one just a little bit different once we get down to the legs. Once that's dried, we're just going to come around and down the side of the arm about 1/4 of an inch, and then let that dry. And then we're just going to start taking some polyfill and filling it up. But just make sure you do go around those corners because that will really save you on getting your stuffing in there just right. Okay, then you're going to go around the arm and you're going to go down the leg about 1/4 of an inch. So do around the arm and then down the leg about 1/4 of an inch. And then once that's dried, we're going to go ahead and put the filling right down into the arm and then stuff it in there with a pencil eraser. That works really good. And then we're going to do the other arm next. And be sure to go down the leg just a little bit right there. And then after that's dried, we're just going to go ahead and fill up the arm. And we're filling up the chest cavity as well. Okay, next you're going to glue all the way around the leg. And then you're going to go 1/4 of an inch down the other leg. And then once this dries, we're going to fill this up. Okay, now that that's dry, we're going to come in and add our stuffing, and then we're going to use our pencil eraser to push it down into the leg. And you are adding quite a bit of stuffing in here. And then just take your pencil, push it in, and then we're going to glue the other leg all the way around, leaving the side open. After that's dry, we're just going to come in the side, add our stuffing, use our pencil eraser to push it down into the leg, and then we're just going to glue up the side. And if you have any stuffing on the outside once you glue it up, just trim it off. Okay, next I'm going to add a ribbon. I'm just coming right around the top part of the neck, crisscrossing this over, and then I'm just going to cut that off. And then for the bow part, I'm just going to wrap this around my hand about 4 times. Then I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to make a little loop to go around the center to hold all this together. Just wrap it around tight and glue it on. And then just kind of open up your little loops, and then you'll have your little bow. And then we're going to glue it onto the gingerbread man. So we're going to glue his little tie part that's on there now to the body, and then we're going to glue this on. Okay, next we're going to take some of the Tim Holtz Distressing Ink in the walnut color, and we're just going to go all the way around his body. And then we're going to kind of drag it through the body as well, just to kind of get him a little bit more distressed. And if you don't like the distressed look, then you can just skip this part. Next, I'm just going to attach him to the very front. I'm going to cross him at a diagonal and just put glue on the back of him and then glue him on. Okay, then to dress him up, I'm just taking a little brown bell and I'm gluing it right to the center of his bow. Then I'm going to add 3 little buttons down the front of him to give him a little bit more character. And I've just had these buttons. I mean, I have a whole bag full of different types of buttons. Just pick something that's small. And then I'm going to distress those also with that Tim Holtz distressing ink. Next, I got these little stamps at Michael's. They're just snap together stamps, and I'm going to snap together the words Merry Christmas. They just join together. All you do is just find all your letters and then start joining them together. And then I'm just going to cut a little tag out of some linen fabric with some pinking shears, just big enough to get my stamp stamped onto it. Using some black ink to stamp this to kind of hold them together. You don't want them to fall apart, and then just kind of lightly get it put on there, the ink, and then push it down onto your fabric and hold it there until it kind of sets in a little bit. And then do the same thing with the word Christmas. Just really drag that across there to get it really loaded up with ink, and then hold it together while you're stamping it. And I'll give you the link for these. And then I'm going to distress it with that same Tim Holtz distressing ink. I'm just going to glue this to the edge of my grater, just right up underneath the little gingerbread man. Decorated up, I got these little tacks. I'm just cutting the tip of the bottom of them off, the pointy part, and I'm just going to glue it right to the edge of my tag. Okay, then just to finish it off, I'm just going to add a little greenery sprig right to the corner. This was a pretty easy craft. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope it gave you some inspiration to get a little head start on Christmas. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. Thank y'all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if nobody's told you today, you're awesome. See you next time. Thanks for watching.